Yeah, what's up, Gooners and Goonerettes? Good to see you guys again. Very frustrating weekend, but still elated because of what happened with the Man City and Spurs game. Look, I'll take that. We didn't gain anything, we didn't lose anything. So I think everybody can approach the sort of week with a smile on their face and in good stead. And it's still in our hands, and that's the most important thing. The strange thing is, though, is I can't quite figure out what Pep is trying to do. Sometimes he's been guilty of overthinking things. And I think what we've seen in the last few games is just that. You have a situation where you have probably one of the most astonishing performances we've seen from a striker in the Premier League ever. And the guy who has been assisting that run with Haaland has been Kevin De Bruyne. And he didn't start Kevin De Bruyne in the first game against Tottenham, and they were 2-0 down at half-time. This time you go away to their place at Tottenham Stadium and you drop him again. Now look, we've talked about this many times that Ronaldo, when he came to Man United, he disrupted the flow of what was going on there. And I talked about this happening with Man City. And the truth is, guys, I think this more has to do with Pep's tinkering than it does with the actual team itself. And here's why. Haaland scored 25 goals. Great, amazing, fantastic, record-breaking. But if you tally up the amount of goals that they've scored this season with Haaland, they actually scored the same amount of those goals last season, but just spreaded with different various players. And what's happening at the moment with Manchester City is that the midfield, without De Bruyne, the midfield is just not getting the ball to Haaland quickly enough. There's too many touches in the midfield. They're just not sparking those quick attacks. You have the fast movement, quick pace, that speed that Haaland has, and you're not utilising it. I know how that works because I remember when we had Sanchez, Walcott, and they were on the wings, and Giroud was dropping back. Ozil was spreading the ball around, and it was realistically that you had Sanchez on the left, Walcott on the right, and teams just couldn't defend against it. We ended up scoring 65 goals between the attacking players, 2016, 2017. Ozil, remember, just missing Thierry on whose assist record with 18. And the goals were plenty. Sanchez had 31 goals, Walcott 19, Giroud 16, Ozil 12. I mean, it was goals everywhere. And that's the reason why you look at this Arsenal team now and the goals are just spread it out everywhere. You know, a lot of players now on 7 goals, Nketiah on 9. It's just spread out everywhere. My point being is that if you have the guy, the maestro, the music conductor in Kevin De Bruyne, who makes Haaland tick, and it doesn't matter how many chances he has. I mean, you just need to put 3 or 4 balls into the box and he'll get on the end of one of them. And I remember the interview Kevin De Bruyne did. He said, look, I just put the balls into the space. I know he's going to be there. That's what he says. I know he's going to be there. So you take him out and you're away at Tottenham, somewhere where you haven't won in the last 4 games. It just doesn't make any sense. And this is a game Man City could have taken advantage of. So Arsenal lost to Everton. You win at Spurs and you're 2 points behind, and you're playing Arsenal after next week against Brentford. So you were essentially, you could have had the ability to go a point ahead of Arsenal if you would have won against Spurs at the Emirates. You had the capability to do that and you just didn't do it. So there's some baffling decisions there with what's going on with Pep Guardiola. Arsenal, on the other hand, very strange game. Very strange game. As I said at halftime, Everton, 24% possession, had 8 shots, and it was really just the intensity. There's Sean Dyche, and I got to talk about Sean Dyche because he's had to build his teams with Postman Pat's Bob the Builders. Yeah? He's never had competent talent. He's never had talent like this to work with. Now all of a sudden you give him Decor, you give him Onana, you give him a plethora of talent, you give him a striker. I mean, you know, let's talk about Calvert-Lewin versus Chris Woods. It's not even close, is it? But I'm just talking talent-wise. And then you've got the England goalkeeper as well. So you've got all these different things now that Sean Dyche has got to play with. And it is miles ahead of what he's ever had to deal with at Burnley. This guy had scraps and was just getting by on scraps. And he was getting by on just working with a system that was adhered to players who was an average talent. Now he's got some good talented players. He can do more with his system. He can be more adventurous with his tactics. And that's exactly what he was doing against Arsenal. And it was a different mixture of things. I mean, guys were running their socks off to play for the manager, and they outworked us and outfought us, and credit to them. Credit to Everton. Won't take anything away from it. But with Arsenal, it's one of those games that you look at, and so you look at the Southampton game, you look at the Leeds game, look at the Man United game, and you look at this game, and that is actually where we have to improve. So as good as you have been this season, there is a level and which you can reach, you can still reach. There's something in your back pocket. There's another level that you can reach to in order to be a better team. So for Arsenal, it's good, because it just goes to show how much you've got to grow. And let's also consider the video that I made in November. I made a video called Can Arsenal Win the League? That's up on the channel. And you guys know I've said one thing in regards to why Arsenal would win the league. And my reasons is because Manchester City are going to drop points. They always drop points. Every season, they'll lose 3, 4, 5 games. They'll draw 3 or 4 games every season. Yeah? And we know that they've won the Premier League, 4 out of the last 5 times. But they are vulnerable to also dropping points. Arsenal, on the other hand, this is only the 2nd game that they've lost. They've only drawn 2 games and lost 2 games. In that time that I launched that video, this was the first time Arsenal had lost. And in that time, City have lost twice. So it just goes to show that the account for me saying that City are just going to continue losing games, and that's going to be the downfall. That's going to be the reason why Arsenal, playing at their current form, would go on to win a title, because they are going to continue to drop points, and they still will continue to drop points. And everyone has to take that into account, that when Arsenal are playing, sure, you have a day off. Everybody has a bad day at the office, and Everton definitely was that. But the consistency in the way how Arsenal play and how they come back after a defeat or a bad game has also been good. Now, Arsenal are going to get stronger, because they've got that bench now. They've got the Smith Rowe, they've got the Reece Nelson to come, and then they've got Trossard on there now, they've got Jorginho on there now, they've got Jesus who's back in training. So you've got a good core of bench players to come in to help them over the line, something they did not have. Last season, they started dropping off. They started dropping like flies. Partey got injured, didn't he, after the transfer window in January. Ben White was out for 2 months. Kieran Tierney was gone. Tomiyasu. It was just like one after the other. And then it got to the point where we had nothing on the bench. And that's what happened last season. This season, that ain't going to happen. Because sure, you might lose 1 or 2 key players, but you've actually got a bunch of competent players on the bench now. That's the difference. The difference is we just got more help. So with that being said, I still think it's advantage Arsenal. I really do. I still think it's in our hands now, and it's not going to be easy. Brentford are a very, very good team. United had 9 wins, didn't they? They were unbeaten in 9 games before they played Arsenal. Arsenal turned them over at the Emirates Stadium. But Brentford are also on a 9-game unbeaten streak now, and they're playing really well. This team won at the Etihad. They've been rolling everybody over. They just twist up Southampton over last week. And they're coming into the Emirates Stadium in good stead, and they'll be confident because of what happened against Everton. They will know that Arsenal are going to be a bit antsy, going to be a little bit vulnerable. But it's for Arsenal to go in and make it happen and show the intent and control the game. Because against Everton, there's one thing that Sean Dyche got right. Arsenal have been quick starters. Arsenal jump right at you from the get-go and control the game, and teams have almost been backpedaling away from us. And Everton was like, no, we're going to put 5 men in the midfield, we're going to make it difficult for Partey in transition, and we're going to jump out at them, and that's exactly what they did. And it unsettled Arsenal. I don't know whether that's the tactics that Brentford's going to use, but I'm guessing it's going to be something around that. At the Emirates, it's going to be a lot harder. But it's going to be a tough game. I can promise you it's going to be a tough, tough game. And for Arsenal, you don't win that and then you go in to play Manchester City. That can be tough. That can be this. A lot of fans are saying now, is this the beginning of Arsenal's downfall? They're asking the question, is this the beginning of Arsenal's downfall? And Arsenal have to go out against Brentford and prove that this is not. And that's where I'll leave the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. And I appreciate the love and support that you guys have always brought to Rhino One. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace out.